First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful conference and allowing me to say a few words about Trustworthy AI. And we have seen just seconds ago what AI can do. And maybe I could not stop really from asking one of the AI tools to generate for me a picture for this presentation, and there will be a couple of others in the presentation. So it's really a very powerful tool, and I have to say, it captures very well our journey. So I was amused with the result. Let me start with a quote from European Central Bank Executive Board member Isabel Schnabel, which said in practice that trust is one of the most valuable assets of financial institutions and central banks in particular. And I think if I know what Madame Rossana Costa just said during the opening speech, I probably could take her quote here instead of the one from Isabel Schnabel. But in time when more and more uncertainty is in the community, maintaining public trust is not an easy task. It's a pretty big challenge. And I think that introduction of artificial intelligence will not reduce this challenge. Instead, it will add to this challenge. And when we see that general public are today expressing already concerns and even sometimes fear about what happens when AI starts to kick in, then I have to say that we need to take it very seriously. And in my view, this is not going to happen. So the AI will very positively impact our life. But we need to do this implement AI in a reasonable and trustworthy way. According to the IBM Global AI Adoption Index, only 1 out of 5 companies today globally is saying or is not using AI really. Is saying that they will not use AI. The global investment in AI technologies from less than 1 billion in 2010 to almost 80 billion in 2021. I think that in Latin America, if I read the forecast correctly, it is forecasted that by 2030 there is approximately surplus over 5% to the GDP. So I think the overall trend is very, very evident. But there is a small but to this. A lot of companies which are working on AI, they don't really reduce, for example, an unintended bias. They don't invest in building trustworthy AI. They have a lot of problems, and very many of them are treating AI as a black box and not able to explain the decisions which the AI is taken, just because the explainability of the AI is yet not really on the level which will allow this. Yes, there are many types of AI, and I think the previous presentation shows as well some of them, but from machine learning to deep learning, artificial neural networks, as well as generative AI and large language models. So there are a lot of different types. And when we take the two last ones, we just start to see, and as well from the previous presentation, we see that they can generate content. They can really start reasoning and generate content by its own. And then, of course, this brings a natural question: how can we, in central banks, really use this content? Is it safe to use that content generated by AI? Shouldn't we just simply block this for our employees? Because we are not sure what these models will really generate. And I just want to make a very small quiz. Who thinks in the audience that we should block ChatGPT for the central bank's employees? Please raise your hand. Wow. Nobody. I have to say that after almost 20 years in central bank, I have not seen such a risk appetite. Very good. And then, of course, in the past, I have not expected this kind of response. And of course, in the past, we saw that there were some attempts to stop the emerging technologies for sometimes very good reasons. But it was never very successful. And with new AI, with this emerging technology, it's not really about stopping it. It's about understanding what this technology can do, where we should implement this technology, where we can implement it in the trustworthy way, that we ensure that what is generated can be trusted. And it's definitely not to rush because everyone else is doing it. So this, I think, should be clear. And then here I see that you have a lot of appetite for the AI. When you open a browser, you probably get endless definitions of what trustworthy AI is. I like the definition which has been proposed by European Commission. There was an open consultation to get to this definition, and one of the elements should be that the trustworthy AI should be definitely lawful, so should adhere to all the regulations and laws. They should be ethical, demonstrating respect for ethical principles and values, and it should be robust from technical and social perspective. But there is one additional element which we have to think about when we start thinking about implementation of the AI. It's about the process, the lifetime of the AI system. That these elements and trustworthiness has to be observed and ensured on each and every step of the life cycle. It's not enough when the end system we think it's trustworthy. It has to go through all its phases, because otherwise we will not be able really to be sure that it is trustworthy. Now, here I list a lot of components of the trustworthy AI, and there is no one magic checklist to validate if the AI system is really trustworthy. And it depends very much on the use case. Some of these elements will be valid for one use case, some others for another use case. So definitely there is no one fits all. But there are one prerequisite which is very important. I think it's a robust data management and data governance. Without this, I think we cannot really think about a AI which is performant and is responding in the trustworthy way to our needs. And one as well element which is common is the operationalization, which we need to take care of. Because today, with all the cloud infrastructure which is available, it's super easy. It's really few clicks to get and start experimenting with AI. But the problem starts when it has to be accurate every day. When we start it and it's in production, and every day it has to produce an accurate result. And we have to deal with drifts, and we have to deal with retrain of the model over time in order to have an accurate results every day. And I could not resist. I asked ChatGPT 3.5 if it's trustworthy. And the answer was sort of. At least the answer was that it tries to be trustworthy. And I think that it is best answer it could ever give. So it's super cool that it recognizes already that trustworthy AI is essential for fostering public acceptance, ethical use, and responsible deployment of artificial intelligence in various domains, including finance. There were a list of different domains, of course. I had to cut it down, but finance was definitely one of them. Now, challenges for the AI governance. It's a demanding topic, because here there is a difficult to achieve balance between regulation and innovation. And if we regulate too much, we stop the innovation. When we innovate too much, or we cannot really innovate too much, but we allow innovation to the full extent, then we probably raise the risk to the levels which will not be acceptable by the community and especially by the central bank. And there are some central banks, they like, for example, Bank of England, which they go to the direction of principle-based guidelines, at least. But there are as well other financial institutions which are going in the direction of a very prescriptive framework, like, for example, our colleagues from Singapore. And what we need to do as well, we probably need to look in a bit wider as well and ensure that the regulations for the central banks are as well potentially changed in order to fight the bias in those algorithms and as well foster the sharing which is required for AI to run. Now, getting to I just want to illustrate yet another challenge which we have with multiple different government regulations and frameworks. And I will just start with a discussion which is going on in US Congress. And I think there are two short fragments which will be interesting to hear.
Thank you. I think what's happening today in this hearing room is historic. I can't recall when we've had people representing large corporations or private sector entities come before us and plead with us to regulate them. When it came to online platforms, the inclination of the government was get out of the way. This is a new industry, don't overregulate it. In fact, give them some breathing space and see what happens. I'm not sure I'm happy with the outcome as I look at online platforms.
Me either.
And the harms that they've created. Problems that we've seen demonstrated in this committee, child exploitation, cyberbullying, online drug sales, and more. I don't want to repeat that mistake again. And what I hear is the opposite suggestion from the private sector, and that is come in on the front end of this thing and establish some liability standards, precision regulation. for a major company like IBM to come before this committee and say to the government, please regulate us. Can you explain the difference in thinking from the past and now?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, this comes back to the issue of trust and trust in the technology. Trust is our license to operate, as I mentioned in my remarks. And so we firmly believe, and we've been calling for precision regulation of artificial intelligence for years now. This is not a new position. We think that technology needs to be deployed in a responsible and clear way, that we've taken principles around that, trust and transparency, we call them, are principles that were articulated years ago, and build them into practices. That's why we're here advocating for precision regulatory approach. So we think that AI should be regulated at the point of risk, essentially, and that's the point at which technology meets society.
This is the part of the discussion which is happening in Congress, and you can see here, of course, up to now, there is only this Disclosure Act which has been put in motion by the US Congress. Of course, there's a lot of more happening there and a lot of more discussions. But I wanted to put it in contrast with the proposal of the EU AI Act, which is much more comprehensive and much more demanding from the perspective of regulation based on risk. But this brings me to the point that, of course, we are living in a very unclear world. So we don't know what will be the regulation of AI for tomorrow. And this, of course, is yet another challenge for the central bank, because I think we should not stop. We should move forward. We should start embracing with this technology, which starts using, and you are already, I think, using it. And this proactiveness, of course, will pay off, because there will be, when the regulation comes up, you will be then ready. If you implement the Trustworthy AI, you will be ready for these regulations. You will as well be able to say to your stakeholders and build the trust, because you will be probably the first to say, look, I am compliant with these regulations. I take it seriously. I am a trustworthy institution. I am taking my responsibilities right. And just to illustrate a number of frameworks currently in place, it's huge. Probably very soon there will be yet another regulation, because they are popping up like mushrooms almost. And imagine when you start dealing with AI, and regardless if you outsource it or insource it, you will very, very soon be confronted from the situation that you want to get some kind of algorithms, but these algorithms were built and trained with one regulation in mind. Now you want to bring it to another country. There are different regulations. There will be a complete mess. So I think that we need really to start thinking about taking it globally, because AI is inherently global technology. And when we come to ChatGPT and these billions or trillions of elements, we will not have this per country. We will not have this per even probably region. We will have this globally. And we need to make sure that it is governed globally as well. And very last slide. I don't really have a perfect recipe for the governance, AI governance for central banks. At the European Central Bank, we are still building this and trying to understand how will it be best to build it. But I have two recommendations. One is that there have to be a wide range of stakeholders around the table. Without this, I think we will not be able to move forward, because AI application is really needs to look in the needs to be looked at from a very many different perspectives: IT, legal, data privacy, all these type of things. Business, of course, statistical, and so on. And then be transparent of your AI plans, because your community, your either employees or public, they will give you a credit of trust if you are transparent and be clear on what you want to do and what are your objectives. And one additional point which I would like to say, I know I am finishing, is literacy. We have to make sure that our employees, that our public understand what AI is, what AI is not, and what AI can do and what cannot do. And as well, we should avoid a situation that the news spread and the news about the generic AI, which we don't yet have, and we probably need another 25 years to get there. So we should not let our public believe that we have it already and we can use it. And then cooperate, I think, with other institutions, with other central banks. We can exchange, we can as well work on the best practices, and this, I think, will help the whole community of central banks to move forward. Thank you very much. I hope that it was interesting for you as well to hear.